Forms of fractions: mixed numbers, improper fractions, decimals, and percentages. Everybody here knows that there are different ways of writing numbers. For example, here is the same quantity written 4 different ways. As a mixed number, 1 1/4. As an improper fraction, 5/4. As a decimal, 1.25. And as a percent, 125%. Like I said, everyone knows there are different ways of writing numbers. The important question is, why do we have different ways? The answer is that some forms work better in some situations, and other forms work better in other situations. The right form is the form that makes life easier in your current situation. Now let's talk about how we get from one form to another. Let's start with a mixed number and go to an improper fraction. And the important thing to remember here is that a mixed number like 1 1/4 is just a slightly simpler way of writing a whole number plus a proper fraction. In this case, the whole number is 1 and the proper fraction is 1/4. You know that 1/4 is a proper fraction because the numerator is smaller than the denominator. To get the improper form, we change the 1 to 4/4, so we'll have a common denominator, and then we add the numerators of the two fractions. This gives us 5/4. The key to converting fractions, either proper or improper, into decimals is to remember that a fraction is just basically a division problem. 5/4 is another way of saying 5 divided by 4. If you divide 5 by 4, either by hand or by calculator, you should get 1.25. Changing a decimal to a percent is even easier. We can either do it by moving the decimal point 2 places to the right, or by rewriting the decimal as a fraction with a denominator of 100. Percent means per 100. I know we said this before, but it is important enough to say again. The right form is the form that makes life easier in your current situation. Which, of course, begs the question, what form works best for what situation? Usually, we would use a mixed number like 1 1/4 in conversation. If you had to do calculations by hand, you would probably use an improper fraction like 5/4. If you're doing that same calculation with a calculator or a computer, you would probably use the decimal form 1.25. And if you were presenting these results, you'd probably use a percent. Let's try another. This time, let's begin with the improper fraction 11/4 and change it to a mixed number. We start out by dividing just as we did with the decimals, but this time we use division with remainder. I know it's been a while, but hopefully everyone remembers that. 4 will go into 11 2 times with a remainder of 3. So we take the quotient, which is 2, and use that as our whole number. And we take the remainder, which is 3, and we use that as the numerator of the fraction part of the mixed number. So 11/4 becomes 2 3/4. Now, decimal and percent conversions work exactly the way we did before. You divide 11 by 4 and you get 2.75, and then you can move the decimal decimal point a couple of places, and that'll give you 275%. let's say we try an example. Pretend you just threw a end of the semester party and you had this many pizzas left over. If someone were to ask you how many pizzas you had, you'd probably say 2.5. That's a mixed number. If you had to divide up the pizzas, which involves division, you'd probably use an improper fraction, 5/2, because improper fractions are way easier if you're doing multiplication to division, unless you have a calculator, in which case you would use 2.5 or a decimal form. I can't think of a reason you'd use percentage here, but I suppose that's possible too. For more videos, tips, resources, or just to join the conversation, go by You Do the Math, K through Calculus, at youdothemath, K through calculus.blogspot.com.